All right, welcome to Aligned, Liberated, and Abundant. I am your host, Dr. Toya Davis, and today we have a special guest, and I am so excited. But if you're new to me, this is a place where high-achieving women come to get tools and tips to help them rewrite the narratives of their lives, understand where they are operating in programming, and develop a life that is filled with alignment without sacrificing abundance, and being able to step into your liberation. So here we are today, and we are going to just explore what comes up, right? Dr. Giavanni Washington is our first guest on the Aligned, Liberated, and Abundant podcast, and I'm so excited to have her here. We'll talk a little bit about how we know each other and all of that stuff once we get into today's episode, but I am going to give you a little bit about her. Dr. Giavanni Washington is a Black goddess guide and the creator of the only oracle deck in the world to feature real Black women embodying African goddesses. She believes Black people have been disconnected from their history and pushed out of spiritual spaces, and has made it her mission to help redress the balance. So I'm going to turn it over to her so that she can give you a little bit more context and dive a little bit deeper into who she is and how she shows up in the world. Go ahead.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Toya. It's really, I'm sorry, Dr. Toya. It's very lovely to be here with you today. As you mentioned, we've known each other since college. And I told Tunde the other day, I was like, yeah, we weren't really close in college, but I like full-grown Toya. I was like, we're really having a good time together. Do you know what I mean? I think we were in orchesis together, but I was sort of an orchesis on the periphery. You had come from a long background of dancing, and I was just discovering dance, specifically West African dance. And it has really taken, I didn't know I was going to talk about this. That's so interesting. That it has really set orchesis set the trajectory. Orchesis and Dramatala and dancing and drumming in Tallahassee set the trajectory for my life. It is like the organizing principle. It's been the organizing principle, dancing and drumming, for the rest of my life, which now looks like running a spiritual wellness company called Black Goddess Within. And similarly, I work with overachieving Black women who have, they're living the dream, but there's something missing. There's something that's spiritually unaligned. There's something they want more. Typically, these were the people who were good girls. They got the good grades. They checked all the boxes. They married the right partner. They've got, they're living the dream. But there's something missing. There's something that's not quite right in their soul. Either there's something more, or there's something they want to get into the world. I've got a lot of, professors and therapists and who are like, but I want to write a book, or I want to go, whatever it is, do this other thing that's not aligned with all the training that I have. But we come to this planet, this is so interesting. We come to this planet with agreements that we've made, right? And I think all of our colonialism, capitalism, being raised in Black families, they sometimes take us out of our alignment. They take us out of our gifts, and we forget our purpose. And so my work is about realigning with our histories, realigning with the wisdom that comes from gods and goddesses that look like us. Something happens to people when you think that the all-powerful being is in a body that doesn't look like yours. Mm-hmm. Like all of a sudden, everything that's accessible to that being in that body is not accessible to me. And so I think it's very, very important that we understand that we come from people with one, long history, like ancient histories, and two, that their gods look like them. They look like us.
Yes.
They're gods and goddesses, excuse me. And to that end, I wanted to just say this. So your podcast is, Aligned,
Liberated, and Abundant.
And so it's Allah. And Allah is the number 4 card in the deck. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Allah. She is from the Igbo people of Nigeria. And she's like the great mother creatrix goddess. And she is all about, there's actually quite a lot of information about her as one was to Google her. She's very well explicated. But there's a piece about she's with you at all cycles. She's with you as you're conceived. She's with you as you're being grown in utero. She's with you as your birth. She's with you through your life, and you go back to her in death. And she's a very critical connection to our ancestors, because the ancestors are buried in the earth and we walk on the earth. And so we are always literally standing on the shoulders of our people. Like they're always with us. We're not separate from them. And so when I saw the Aligned, Liberated, Abundant, but then something else came and it was Allah. And I was like, oh my God, it's Allah. So I just wanted to bring her forward today.
Yes. Let me tell you. So before I highlight this synchronicity, I'm going to just circle back earlier in Giovanni's or Dr. G's, sorry, Dr. G's intro, she talks about Orchesis and Dramatala. So this background. So people are like, who, what? So we both went to FAMU. Go Rattlers.
Florida Agricultural Mechanical University in Tallahassee, Florida.
Yes, because I do assume that everyone knows what FAMU is, but you're right.
No, I'm from LA and I had never heard of it till I went there on a Black college tour.
So we both went to Florida Agricultural Mechanical University, affectionately known as FAMU. And in that university, there was a college dance company, which was called Orchesis. And then there was a West African or hand and stick percussion ensemble, and their name was Dramatala. So that was kind of our meeting in that Orchesis and Dramatala space. But Allah, say what's
unclear. I'm not sure.
Whichever. So you mentioned she comes from the Igbo people, and if you are new to me community, or if you are familiar with me, you know, part of my work deals around ancestral lineage healing and helping people understand and tap into kind of key points within their ancestry. And one of the things that people are like, have you ever done like the DNA, the ancestry? And I'm like, I'm literally a walking connection to all things that I need. No, I haven't, right? And they're like, well, how do you know what you get is right? And I said, because the synchronicities continue to come. Yeah. So Igbo is the only dance form that I know across multiple continents. Okay. I didn't seek it out. Like, I'll just show up someplace and they'll be like, today we're learning Igbo from Trinidad. Today I'm learning Igbo from Haiti. Today we're learning Igbo. And I was like, why do I keep learning this Igbo? Yeah. Right. So dig in. So this is funny to me because, again, for me, this is just that confirmation, right? One of the things that we talk about, particularly when we're saying this idea of high achieving women, and we've learned to operate in all of the other spaces, part of that is we've learned to not trust ourselves, right? And then when we have that thing that's telling us the thing, we still like, no, because we feel like we need someone else to validate that reality. Yeah. And I'm like, if you are open and if you trust it, you will consistently get confirmations and guidance in the little crumb drops that lead you to the next thing. And so trust yourself. That's my soapbox.
What you're saying, you're Igbo? Is that what you're saying?
Not in this incarnation.
But you come from the people?
But in the, yes, in the blood, if you pulled out the bloodline, right? I do believe that an aspect of me is comes from the Igbo people.
I had a very similar experience with the other divination system that I use from the Dagara people of Burkina Faso. Mm-hmm. I went to Senegal in, I think, 2006. And there was a drum and dance camp that was being led by the lead, like the master drummer of the country in Burkina Faso. And I was like, well, we're this close, we have to go. So we went. It was a few of us. And then I returned the next summer there. And I think I was there for 7 weeks doing some research. Like, I got a bunch of, UCLA money and then took it and dropped it in Burkina Faso. And then some years later, I had a reading with Malidoma Somé and was like, blown away, just blown away. I was like, okay, I need this in my life. And so I ultimately, which was even some years after that, but I ultimately studied with him and was certified in that system. And then I think we were the last class to train with him, and then he passed away. So he's now an ancestor, bless him. And then I found out through African ancestry that my father's line is from Burkina Faso. We're not from the Dagara, but we're from the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the people. Oh my gosh, it starts with a B. Anyway, the people right next door, I'm told, the Bisa people, right next door, who, it was just like, okay, it's been calling to me for a decade and a half, right? And they're also, this was the description that I thought was hilarious. Look, my father's actually from South Central Los Angeles, and he has this thing with peanuts. Like, he just loves peanuts. He loves the shelled peanuts, he just loves peanuts. And so when the description was like, oh, the Bisa people are from South Central, they're South Central Burkinabe peanut farmers. And it was just like, okay, you can't make that up. You can't make that up. So I had a very similar experience of just like to have all that interaction with, people go to West Africa. Americans don't go to Burkina. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of Europeans and French folks who go to Burkina, but not America. It's not, we go to Senegal, we go to Guinea, we go to Ghana, right? But we're not really going into the interior. So that I had that many experiences, and then to find, and when I was there, I remember just the first time I was there walking out and being like, there's, I think, 69 different ethnic groups in the space of the size of Colorado, a state of the size of Colorado. And like, I was like, oh, that's my cousin. And that's my, like, all these people look like my cousins, my family, you know? And so then like, well, they're literally my family. And here we are. So yes, synchronicities abound.
Yes. So let me ask you. So we're getting ready for the conference, Aligned, Liberated, and Abundant. It is September 14th. I was going to say 4th. That felt really close. September 14th. And we are dividing it. So each, essentially the 3 pillars, right? We're looking at alignment, we're looking at liberation, and we're looking at abundance. Although they don't really like nicely separate out into each other. Because as you were talking, this idea for me is very much about alignment. Giavanni is going to teach us on that Saturday about liberation, right? Your liberation, yes.
I am. I am liberation.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
But those things aren't apart from each other. And I recognize I use a lot of hand gestures. So if you're listening to me as a podcast, like if you're listening to me on the podcast, some of the nuance is lost and you might think that there's dead space, but I'm actually doing something with my hands.
There's a whole communication happening.
Right. So my apologies, but know that I will articulate the thing in the end. So my question to you is, as you created the Black Goddess Within Oracle deck as a tool and a deepening of this idea of liberation, but can you also talk about how that liberation and how using this feeds into alignment?
Absolutely. The best way that I have found to describe it so far is with this image of kind of like meridians, like say we're sliced up and down our meridians and our bodies fall down, you know, like all the pieces fall down. Every time I get another piece of my history, whether it's from documents or dreams or through drumming, I get a lot of messages when I'm drumming, like a piece of me stands up. You know, when I found out that, I was like, oh, you're actually Burkinabe, you know, or specifically you're from the Bisa tribe, like, oh, okay, there's a part of me that now, and I walk different in the world. Like when I did the ancestry.com a gabillion years ago, it was like, oh, you're from these 19 places. I was like, this is not helpful. Like I remember being actually quite disappointed, but having that specific piece of information, like you're from these people who do these things in this way. It's like, oh, I'm attached again to this sort of, there's a historicity about my person. I'm not just this entity right now. Like I come from people who have history and tradition and culture. And I feel like intellectually we know that, but we have the actual physical and spiritual and emotional and cultural break of the Middle Passage that we're still dealing with the ramifications from, even though everyone is traveling and crisscrossing the globe now with airplane travel. Like I don't believe that we've actually healed from it. You know, I believe that we are actively trying to heal from it. And I know that this is not like every Black person's experience, but in my experience growing up, my parents were definitely, or my family was definitely like, oh no, we're not even looking at that. We're not dealing with it. We're not, like, you're here now, you got to work hard now, right? This is your, so it wasn't about this. Like I have a lot of grief and a lot of sadness for the stories that were lost in the Middle Passage, right? For the people who jumped off the boats, for the people who were thrown off the boats, for the people who made it to the shores and then died, you know, and then so like all the history, all the stories, all the knowledge, all the invisible things that they held with them, that they had with them as they walked on the planet and shared and deployed in whatever way they did that. Like we don't have that, you know, we're missing that. And yes, there were things that were retained, for whatever reason, and I don't have a good explanation for it, but that is where my sadness is. That's where my grief is. And so when I go across the Middle Passage it was important for me to make a deck that reflected the entirety of Africa, because again, when I get the documents that saying, oh, you're from these 19 places, like, yes, there are Orisha decks and they're great. Right? But the Orisha are very well explained. They're very well researched, just like the Neteru from Egypt are very well explained in research, often through the eyes of folks who don't have a lot of regard for us, right? And so one, I want to give another lens, another voice, or I want to be a channel for this information that's coming directly from them and not through the eyes of people who think that we're savages. And two, I wanted to create something that was truly diasporic, because I really feel like I'm a diasporic individual. Right? I come from I'm not just out of Africa. I come from many places inside of Africa. Right? And so that's a long answer. I don't even know if that answered the question.
No, and I think this notion of acknowledging that you are a diasporic individual, I find that a lot of what we struggle with is the preconceived belief, right? So it is the thing that's been passed down to us that we are holding on to, that we must like fight for, right? To maintain this thing that's not even ours, which actually keeps us stuck. And part of, like you even just mentioned in your own family, right? It was, you're here now, right? This is where we are, this is what we're doing, move along to get along. And I think right now there is this grab to reclaim Africanness, air quotes, Africanness. And in that, because the permission hasn't been given to be diasporic,
Yeah.
meaning to hold an amalgamation of all of these places and people, it's like, I'm going to lock onto this one thing and that's going to be the thing. But what happens when you do that is you lose all of the other aspects that are there as a part of yourself waiting to be untapped, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I am only this, no, I'm only Yoruba, so I'm only going to study these things. But wait, like the universe is like an immeasurable amount of years old, you know?
One thing we've been talking about in divination that's coming up a lot lately is this concept of, it's called Beirut, and it's the wisdom of the origin. And this is about like your most ancient ones, right? And sometimes the most ancient ones it's literally stardust. It is the cosmos, right? It's not even a person. It's like beyond the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of, the playground is very different when you're talking about cosmic wisdom and cosmic energy versus just human energy or a particular specific energy, right?
Yes.
And I think I will say, I don't think that I started the deck with the clear intention of, oh, we're going to get goddesses from everywhere because I'm a diasporic person. Mm-hmm. But through the process, I was like, wait, this actually is speaking to this thing that you said that I've really never acknowledged, which is that I am a child of the diaspora. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm very much, I mean, okay, we'll be real honest. I felt very locked out from Ifa, because I had readings in the Village in South Carolina. I had readings in Cuba. I had readings in Brazil. And they were always like, nope, this isn't for you. Nope, this isn't for you. Nope, this isn't for you. And I was like, but I'm Black. You know what I mean? But what do you mean this is not for me? And I didn't know if I was Yoruba or not. It turns out we do have Yoruba lineage. Which way, I don't know. But we also have, also all of these other things, right? And so I was like, oh, it was kind of even like with West African dance. There were some things like Sabar never called to me. For those of you who can't see, Toya, she's agreeing with me. She said never, it never called her. But I have always been into my hips. I've always moved my hips. And so then I show up in a Congolese class and I'm like, oh, and then I find out that my dad's family is also from the Congo. I was like, okay, well, this makes clear, like it's in me. Mm-hmm. So we have these resonances, like you said, these synchronicities. We have this wisdom that I guess the gag is learning how to read it. Learning how to interpret it, learning how to collect it and track it and interpret it, right? And maybe, I don't know, that sounds very researchy, so I want to say it in another way, but learning how to sit into it and understand what the wisdom is trying to say to you.
And I think it starts with intention, right? Okay. I think it starts with intention and then followed up with openness, right? Because I believe one of the things that I teach and we talk about in the ancestral work is they're always trying to communicate with you. Right. Yeah. They are not like, I'm just going to hold this information, like those stories. Nope, I'm not here. So nobody else is getting this story. The way that the ancestors continue to live and evolve is as long as someone is there to remember them. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And if all of the people that were with them in that time are no longer there, how do you get someone to remember you? You share that information with the people who are here now, be it through people receiving downloads and writing books that you may think is a mythical figure, right? Yeah. Somebody then wrote this whole long narrative about this random person that they thought wasn't real, but it is real. And now everybody's saying this person's name and talking the story, right? You find pictures, you get these glimpses, you hear these songs. So once we come into the acceptance and the willingness to be like, no, I want to learn, I'm open to receive, show me, I think that is the gateway, right, for it to start to happen. And then tools like yours, right? Because even, let's say, if I were using the deck, right, and I consistently noticed that I kept getting something that was from a particular region. Or then that for me says, okay, wait a minute. Yes, there's the message that I'm getting in this moment, but then there's also some secondary information that is probably trying to come through in this moment. So let me tap into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, I've had clients who really are like at the very beginning of their journey, you know, and it's so interesting for people to be so accomplished in so many spaces and then to be like a flat beginner in other places. And there's this, like if we can just put down the need to know and put that and really sit in beginner's mind. And I don't mean that it's not about being a novice. It's about being willing to accept something that is so foreign to you, you know, or be willing to consider, I'll say that, not accept, but consider something that is not in your other spheres, right? As a truth or as a way forward, as a director, a sign saying, go in this direction. And it's, a question I get a lot with my sort of, the ones who are new to this space is, well, how do I, when do I do, what's the next? And I'm just like, whoa, let's just sit in it. Let's sit with it. I'm going to present a question and I don't want you to answer it. I want you to hold the question. And what I mean by that is let it work with you, sit with it for a week, let it take you places, let it color your perception about something, go into, you know, and it definitely is it's a willingness and a mindset shift to not have to be, I want to use the word perform, like to not have to perform or produce inside of this work, right? Because we are as conditioned as high achieving, overachieving folks, we're like, oh, we got to do it right, we got to do it fast, we got to do it best, and we got to do it now. Yes. Like none of those things work inside of this space.
Yes.
Except for maybe the persistence, right? I will say, I think ancestral work takes the time it takes, right? And so, and they move on their schedule, which sometimes is your schedule, but not always, right? And then sometimes they move so fast that you're like, your head is spinning, or it seems to us, but they're moving in their own time. And so just, it's a willingness to be able to put down what you know. I think that's what beginner's mind is, to put down what you know and what you're comfortable with and what has made sense to you. Because that training is that training, and it's gotten us so far. And it's gotten us to the point where we can actually identify an unhappiness, an unsatisfied, there's something that's not quite satisfied. And so when you're approaching this, I would say even as a person, like I have to remind myself, and my elders are they're like, hey, you're looking at this through the wrong rubric. And I'm like, okay, you're not wrong. Let me try again, right? Like I can ask the question, I can present the query, the problem or whatever. It doesn't mean I'm going to get an answer right now in the way that I expected. But I do think they talk to us in ways we understand.
Yes.
We have to be willing to acknowledge that we understand in more ways than we've been taught that we understand.
Yes. You know, so again, if you're new to me, one of my modalities is Akashic Records, right? And so for me, everything processes through the aspect of the soul. Back note, Akashic Records are this repository of information, past, present, and future possibilities, but the information is related to you at soul level, right? So it is this notion Dr. G just talked about, you know, some of our oldest ancestors are the stardust, right? It is basically the many iterations and incarnations of your soul from its inception. So I always process everything through the lens of the soul. And one, that helps me always shift to understanding what alignment looks like, because I recognize that me here in this 3D reality is the culmination of choices that have already taken me from that original alignment, right? Due to trauma, due to the experiences that I wanted to have in this lifetime, right? Due to some of the lessons and the agreements that I made with people. So some of those things have already shifted me. And so my goal in everything is to say, okay, well, how can I get back to that place that's alignment? And the way that I get back to that place is by understanding the why, right? Why am I in this moment? Why is this thing happening like this? Why the why? Because when I can understand the why, then I can kind of move through it quicker. I don't want to say quicker, purposefully.
With more ease?
Yes, with more ease, right? I can move through it with a little more ease to try to get to the next thing so that I can move on. But what that requires and what it has required is the letting go, of I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it fast. It's going to look like the roadmap that everyone else has laid out for me, right? Because what I understand is that as an individual, so my roadmap is literally my roadmap, right? As you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, Congolese, same thing, right? Yes, that's my happy place. Sabar, let me tell you, I made up in my mind. At a point, I was just like, those are not my people, and I'm okay with that because everything about it feels foreign in my body. The sound of the music, the steps, like
I can't find the pulse.
Right.
I can't find it. I know it's there, but I can't find it.
And so I said, you know what? Those ain't my people. But even in those similarities, right? We just talked about, we went to FAMU together. We were in orchestras, like all of those things. We are still individual people with very clear soul blueprints. And if I try to be like, oh, I'm going to align with this because she does this and she does this, and we're in the same space, we both are dealing with ancestors and helping people come to liberation. It's still different, right? Yeah. And even the people that are going to be my people are going to not be the same people that are her people, right? Because we have our own tribes. And that was a long story, or not story, but that was a long thing to get us to this point of fast is we're trying to operate from that space when we're operating from what I call the ego mind, right? The ego mind is the thing that keeps us locked into the system. It's the thing that keeps us locked into the programming. And I'm not downing the ego. The ego has its place, right? But when we let the ego mind be the driver versus the spirit mind, because the spirit mind says it's okay to slow down. The spirit mind says, oh, wait, you didn't hear me when I whispered it like that? Okay, hold on. Right. Let me circle the block and give it back.
Here, let me put you in the hospital for a week. Right. That's my story. Oh, okay. I'm listening. Right.
And when we're listening to the spirit mind, we know that it's okay to say, I didn't hear you. Can you give that to me again nicely? That's nicely.
Look, I'm team. I don't need at 4 a.m.
Yes, I'm team. I don't need to learn the lessons the hard way. Right.
And you can say that again. That bears repeating.
Yes, I am team. I do not need to learn lessons the hard way. And I have no problem communicating that when I am speaking to spirit, anybody.
I love it.
Nicely tap me on the shoulder. And if I didn't hear you, tell me again. Right. I don't need to amplify the volume. Yeah. I don't need to amplify the volume. So tell me, where can people, we've been everywhere today. Where can people find your deck?
blackgoddesswithin.com. That's 2 D's and 2 S's, blackgoddesswithin.com. And once you purchase the deck, you actually will get an email with a link to our quick start guide. It's a 12-page ebook that has journal prompts in it as well. And then you come into the world and there's all kinds of other goodies that happen once you're in the universe. But it's, I really do feel like this was one of the agreements that I made, was to be trained in a way, right, with the PhDs, the master's degrees and all of that. I said PhDs, but really I just have one, the PhD. That was enough. And then to take those skills to apply them in this way to bring this ancestral wisdom forward. Like, I really do believe that this is, because it hasn't made sense. Like my bachelor's degree from FAM is in biology. Like how did you get here? Right. But there's, it has never made sense. If you look at my resume, you're like, oh, you're not a sane person. But it all has come to bear. And it just, again, I wish I had the wisdom as a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, 35-year-old to even say like, oh, this is all working towards something. This is all actually, you're going to braid this all together for your greatest good and to honor this agreement that you have made. Like I wish I'd had that wisdom as a younger person.
Yeah, I call that, like, we're collecting the tools for our toolbox.
Yeah.
Because you never know what tool, like you literally never know what tool you're going to need.
Yeah.
I was watching, what's this show? Oh goodness. The Hardy Boys. So recently? I got kids. Don't judge me, huh?
Recently?
Yeah.
Okay. Like from back then, or they have new Hardy Boys?
I didn't know it was a thing back then. So evidently this is new.
Okay, go on.
Yeah.
You're watching the Hardy Boys.
I was watching the Hardy Boys. It's our family show. So we get like a series and we just ride out with. So we're on the Hardy Boys, and really short. So the one boy was like, let's go and do this thing. He was very impetuous. Right. So they go down into this mine. He didn't think about what he needed. It was just, I want to make this thing happen. He was with a girl. I don't know people's names, so y'all, they don't count. Anyway, so he was with the girl character, but she was like, wait, hold on, let me go to my locker, right? She was just grabbing stuff, like things that you didn't know. If she knew that, it was just like the most random things, right? It was like gum and this and this, but she was like, I don't know what's about to happen. You're just running off into the wilderness, and I know that we're gonna need something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the absence without a plan, let me just pack everything that I have so that when we get there, we have some way to survive. And sure enough, they got there, and he's like, why do you have twine? And then what do they need? Why do you have this? Like, literally, she had the stuff. So I say that to say, like, when we are building our toolbox, when we're building our bag, it's not our job to judge or to try to figure out when we're going to need that tool or how we're going to pull it out later. Just trust and know that I have it. And at the point that I need it, I will give the guidance to be like, oh, wait, I need to pull that thing out.
Yeah.
Right.
Ashe. I love it. Toya, I love having these conversations with you. I hope that we are able to have many, many more.
Yes, yes, I agree. So Aligned, Liberated, and Abundant Conference will be September 14th. Dr. Giavanni Washington will be there with us talking about liberation. Give us a little bit about what you're talking about. And we're gonna do that session again, kind of in this interview style, but we'll be on task during the conference.
Maybe we'll be on task. I'm having a lot of revelations ever since I got clear that overachieving Black women were the ones who were showing up for me, because maybe I'm one of those overachieving Black women. And it's really about how we can work past our gifts. Right. So this is about how to break the curse of overachieving Black women. And there are many, many ways. There's one particular thing I'm going to talk about in our session. And it's actually probably a tool that your people already have. They just haven't been deploying it in this way.
Yes. So join us, chicourses.com/ALA virtual. It will be in the show notes and it will be in the show description. Go ahead, like, follow, share, subscribe, do all of the things depending on where you are watching or listening to us at. And remember, you are worthy of a life in the business that lights you up from the inside out. Let's create that together. Until next time, stay aligned, liberated, and abundant. Peace.
I love it. Yay.